If you were listening to Six Music this morning and you were listening to Lauren Laverne's show, you'd have heard her playing the brand new single from the Pet Shop Boys. It's called Burning the Heather. Features Bernard Butler on guitar. This is the first song we've heard from their brand new studio album, which is called Hotspot, which has just been announced. It's going to be coming out on the 24th of January. This is the third record that they've done that's been produced by Stuart Price. Amazing producer. They did Electric with him in 2013 and Super in 2016. It's a really good sounding record. And Pet Shop Boys, most excitingly, because we were talking about them live, weren't we?
They're amazing live.
They're really, really good live. I mean, there's as a band whose visual language is, almost as important as the music up there. They always put on a brilliant show conceptually, visually.
Yeah.
And they've just announced they're going to do a tour for May, June next year, 2020. Dreamworld, the greatest hits live.
Great stuff.
Yeah, Pet Shop Boys' greatest hits set. I mean,
definitely up for this.
And early this week, I sat down with Neil Tennant and Chris Lowe. We're going to start off talking about the record and the new single. We are going to talk about later on the show as well, the greatest hits tour they did. But yes, so this is me chatting to Neil Tennant, and not so much chatting to Chris Lowe, because characteristically he doesn't talk that much.
Yes.
Which is exactly what you want from Chris Lowe. But at the same time, yeah, it's a really nice chat, and here's part one.
He is there.
I should be speaking at this level here, and
Neil will be speaking at approximately this level here.
And I won't be speaking.
You've got me all wrong. I'm not that guy.
People always like a banner to sort of hang above a record. What do you think that's going to be? If this is the first one, you'll find this out because people will start to ask you the same question. What do you think that question's going to be?
Well, the banner is, we don't normally necessarily have a banner, but the banner of this one is, this is our Berlin album. We've owned an apartment with a studio in it in Berlin for about 10 years now, and we've written most of the last 3 albums and other projects there. But this album, we actually decided, then we've normally gone and recorded in London, Los Angeles or somewhere, but with this album, our producer, Stuart Price, came over to Berlin, and we worked in Hansa Studios, the famous Berlin studios where everyone always talks about it because it's a famous thing. David Bowie worked there, and U2. We worked in there, and that definitely changed the sound of the record because there was a lot of old analogue equipment lying around. It definitely had a big effect on the sound of the album.
Well, we'd done a lot of work on it before we got there, and Stuart brought his hard drive, but he also decided that, I don't know how much of this was actually used, but it was a nice idea, was that he put all the sounds like the drums, the bass, the pads and other thing.
And vocals.
Did he even do the vocal?
Yeah.
Coming through speakers, so it was like a band playing in the live area. So he mic'd up speakers and got them all. So when you hit play, it was like a band was playing. So that was his big idea for this. I'm not totally sure how much of that ended up on the record, but it was great going into there and hearing the band playing.
I think he did use quite a lot of that because the sound of the album is much more. The last 2 albums, Electric and Super, have been super digital hyper pop, but this one sounds much more sort of analogue-y. Yeah, it doesn't sound that digital, I don't think.
Autumn is here and they're burning the heather.
Burning the Heather, the first track. It's
not recorded in Hansa, but
it's blowing my theory out of the water.
Yes.
It's a warmer, as you say, more. It's an acoustic world that you're entering.
Yeah, it's the only kind of guitar-y track on the album, and we got Bernard Butler to play on it, and we've always liked Bernard, and he's a wonderful guitarist, and also he sort of likes pop music and stuff.
I'm just a singer of the songs. I'm not that guy. As a very interesting lyric. You've sung in character. You've sung around your own character. Where does this find you then? That particular lyric.
This one's actually. I had for 20 years a house in the County Durham in the north of England, which I sold a couple of years ago. One time we used to do quite a lot of recording up there, and anyway, one day I was driving across the moors, and it was autumn, and they were burning the heather, which they do to stimulate growth. And I thought, autumn is here, and they're burning the heather. That's a lyric, and the rest of it, it's sort of like a kind of a a guy walks into a bar by himself, and I imagine it's in some little village off the moors in Northumberland or Durham, and there's a woman serving behind the bar, and he's sort of chatting her up, really, and he's all the time, because he's claiming he's not. You've got me all wrong. I'm not that guy. I'm just this. But then right at the end, it turns around. And he says, but if there's enough room, I'll consider staying. And so it's just a little story. But there's, or it's a bit like a Western, where the lone guy walks into the village street with the main street with the guns all around.
Hoping I could find the middle of nowhere.
The album title.
The album is called Hotspot. We were trying to think of a word, a German word, that people, because of the Berlin thing, that people in the rest of the world, and particularly in English-speaking countries, would understand, like zeitgeist, for instance. And we couldn't come up with one that didn't just sound totally obscure or sort of slightly pathetic, like zeitgeist, which sounds like a parody. And then one day I was thinking about Berlin and the Cold War, and that Berlin was the hot spot of the Cold War. And also, it's a contemporary term because of Wi-Fi and all that business. And also, it's people used to say it was like a hot jazz club, be a hot spot, on the Lower East Side. And there's a song on the album called Monkey Business, which is about a guy going out to have a good time, and he's definitely going to a hot spot. So it sort of seemed to link together the hedonistic side of the album with a slightly oblique Berlin reference. And also, it's appealingly less tasteful than our album title, like Please or Behaviour. It's got a brashness, which I think is quite surprising.
Still a Pet Shop Boys word, though, isn't it?
Yeah. And it is one word in the dictionary, although it's really two words.
I'll consider staying.
Great stuff.
Thank you very much, Neil. Thank you very much, Chris. And yeah, we'll be talking more to the Pet Shop Boys, talking about their greatest hits tour after 2:30, I believe.
Wonderful. Thank you very much,
right.
Matt Everitt.
Okay, part 2 of our interview with the Pet Shop Boys, Neil Tennant and Chris Lowe, as we were talking about it earlier. Their new album, Hotspot, has just been announced, coming out on the 24th of January. The first single from it, Burning the Heather. It's a gorgeous piece of work, got debuted on Lorna Verne's show this morning. Features Bernard Butler on guitar. And as well as the album, they've just announced a UK and Europe, their first ever, in fact, greatest hits tour.
Surprised they've not done that before.
What I think is about the Pet Shop Boys, they're not a band to do the obvious thing.
Sure.
They've had a lot of hits. I mean, they were going to 1981, 42 top 30 hits, 22 of them top 10s.
Whoa.
I mean, as much as their records stand up as whole albums, one of the good things about them is, they are one of those bands that always releases very, very strong singles, and always has done right from the very start of their career. So a greatest hits tour, with all the resplendent associate visuals that the Pet Shop Boys do so well, is going to be worth seeing. I shall rattle through them quickly. May the 28th, the O2 in London, 29th, Manchester Arena, 30th, Resorts World Arena, Birmingham, 2nd of June, BIC Arena, Bournemouth, 3rd, Motorpoint Arena, Cardiff, 5th, the Utalia Arena in Newcastle, ending up on June the 6th at the SSE Hydro in Glasgow. And I talked to Neil and Chris earlier this week. You heard us talking about the record before. This is about the tour and the idea of having all these singles to choose from, and how the Pet Shop Boys never do things by halves. It's always a very big show. Or is it? May next year. So just you guys, acoustic, one keyboard, no lights. It's going to be...
That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Well, it would never be acoustic because we've never been acoustic.
Of course.
I think it's a lovely idea.
It's a greatest hits tour. We decided to do a greatest hits tour. So on the other afternoon, we made a list of all of our singles.
It's over 4.5 hours long, so I'm not going.
So we're not going to play. So after this interview, we're going to get into the detail of which songs to play. But I guess we're going to play the most popular ones, maybe put ones that have been kind of lesser hits but still hits. But I think everything will have been a single, and maybe we'll segue some songs together. And the visual side of it, we've only just started work on it. We haven't really got anywhere yet.
On the past, 3 tours, we've worked with Es Devlin, and we won't be working on this tour, so it's a bit into the unknown at the moment. What it's going to look like, what it's going to be. Quite exciting in a way.
It is, yes.
But when you said acoustic with no lights, I quite like that idea.
They call us the pop kids, 'cause we love the pop hits and quoted the best.
It's been interesting. You can trace your kind of creative obsessions with each kind of tour that you do, and because there's certain sort of thematic things you can see. Oh, they've enjoyed that exhibition, or they've been reading that book, and it all kind of feeds through. I just wondered what little ideas are percolating in your heads for this, because it's not going to be a small show, I would imagine.
No, it's not going to be a small show. And we're playing quite big venues, and it's the thing, because you're dealing with music from the past that most of the audience will know, and so it's how to make that seem kind of fresh and at what kind of context to give it. And these conversations, as they say, are ongoing.
Very few bands, very few acts can look at, as you say, a run of that many singles and go, well, that's too much for a set. You know, there must be, as much as we say we look forward, there must be a real pride in going, we have achieved these things. Look at these songs. I'm happy to play these songs. That's the thing. I'm not thinking, oh, we've got to do West End Girls because we're sick of it. You're going to think that still sounds really good. I'm happy to be doing it. That's something else that's quite rare for bands, I think.
I think it's churlish when people don't want to play their hits. Well, because also when you're on the stage, you feel the lift from the audience, you know. But also, conversely, I think sometimes people are too conservative from an audience perspective now, and you'll get people complaining that I remember we were talking about David Bowie, going to see David Bowie in the mid-90s, and he was playing an album I really liked by him, actually called Outside, which is what Hello Space Boys we ended up remixing for him and so on. And I really liked that album, and I sort of thought I didn't really need to hear Genie or something. And but you could see a lot of the audience was bored by it, and you could see that he was frustrated. But that's the reality, because I think some of the audience do like to hear the new stuff.
I think you could split. I think.
Yeah.
I'm only saying this. Neil hasn't heard this before. You could almost split up into 2 groups, like the Frieze Art Fair. You could have Pet Shop Boys Contemporary and Pet Shop Boys Classical. That way, we could be happy as artists performing new and interesting stuff and B-sides, and then you could get the other more populist
masters. They're called Frieze
the
Masters.
Yes, PSB Masters.
PSB Masters,
where you just get the usual stuff.
2 shows.
2 shows.
2 separate shows. There's another thing though.
Touche's a good name, actually.
Touche. It's been on the list before. Pet Shop Boys Touche. It should be Touche Pet Shop Boys. The fans always want you to do, would say, oh, would you ever do a show where you just play B-sides? And you say, well, we normally do play a couple of B-sides, you know, but not many people would want to go and see it if we announce, oh, we're doing a tour, we're just playing our B-sides.
I'd go to that one.